Well, I knew it wouldn't be too long before I found myself shooting with 120 film again. I recently bought this Rolleiflex T. I had been missing shooting 120 film for a while, especially the 6x6 format. I just love shooting and composing with a square. And I found this Rolleiflex T for a pretty good price, and I thought, why not? This is definitely not a hidden gem by any means, but I don't think it gets nearly the same amount of attention as some of the more popular Rolleiflex cameras. So today I'm just going to share a little bit about the camera itself, what makes it different from other Rolleiflex models, share some of the photos I've made, and just give you overall my first impressions. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, so if you need a website, go to squarespace.com/MattDay, use code MattDay for 10% off. I'll tell you more about them in just a little bit, but let's get into the Rolleiflex T. Introduced in 1958, the Rolleiflex T was meant to be sort of an entry-level Rolleiflex. It wasn't meant to be a professional camera, but it does still give you a lot of professional control, and as you'll see in the video, some really good quality results. Unlike most Rolleiflex models where you have two different dials, one to control your shutter speed and one to control your aperture, on the side of the lens here you just have one lever. Moving that lever is actually keeping the shutter speed and the aperture coupled, so you're adjusting both at the same time. With this, you could take a light meter, get your exposure value, and set that on the camera. From there, as you adjust that lever, you're going to be keeping the same exposure value. It's just going to give you different combinations of shutter speed and aperture. So depending on what your main focus is, if you'd like to get a large depth of field and get a lot of things in focus, you can prioritize that, and it's just going to keep the shutter speed that you need right along with it. Or if you're shooting something that's moving and you don't want any motion blur, you want to make sure everything is frozen, you can choose the fastest shutter speed option that you have, and that's going to give you the appropriate aperture that you need. You can still manually adjust your aperture and shutter speed independently, but it's just all happening on this one lever as opposed to using two different wheels. Ideally, you would want to set your shutter speed first, because as you move the lever up and down, that's going to be moving, again, both your aperture and your shutter speed. But when you pull out on the lever as you move it, you're only adjusting your aperture. So if you took a meter reading and you wanted to shoot at, let's say, 5.6, you would pull the lever out, set your aperture to 5.6, but then if you need to adjust your shutter speed from there, anytime you move it, the aperture is going to be moving along with it. So setting the shutter speed first and then choosing the aperture, that's going to save you, I guess, just the most time and kind of the most headache. Me personally, I think having the two dials right here and just adjusting them with your thumbs, I find that just a lot quicker and more intuitive. But after using this for just a little bit of time, I've kind of already gotten used to it, so it's not really a big deal. I just find the other method just a lot more intuitive. Now, the lens on the camera is a 75mm f3.5 Carl Zeiss Tessar lens. The lenses in the Rolleiflex cameras and all of the different models, that's primarily the biggest difference amongst most models. There are other things. Some cameras have a light meter, some don't. Primarily, most people are looking at what lens is in the camera as they're choosing which Rolleiflex they would want to get. You've got planar lenses, Xenatar, Tessar. There are so many different models and different lenses amongst the whole lineup, but this being an entry-level camera, the lens is still incredible. There are a lot of different looks that you can get amongst the different lenses, but the rendering from this lens, the sharpness of it, I have zero complaints with this. The waist level finder, like most, if not all Rolleiflex cameras, it has this little pop-up magnifier right here to help you with focus. But if you'd like to switch the viewfinder out to something like a prism, you can do that on this model. You just push down on these two little levers and the viewfinder just slides right out. You can also change the focusing screen on this model. So if you'd like to get a brighter viewfinder, brighter focusing screen, or if you'd like something with a specific kind of grid, you can also do that with this model. If you want to use a lens hood or any filters, whether it be colored filters or close-up filters, you can do that using the size Bay 1 or Bayonet 1. It uses this bayonet system here on the front of the lens, and depending on the different models, there are different size filters and bayonet mounts that you would need. But again, this is bayonet size 1. Another interesting difference with this camera is the shutter release button. Typically, it would be on the front of the camera here, just facing directly out, but on this model, it's facing out to the side, and it's at sort of a slight up angle. I found it to be really comfortable. I kind of hold the camera like this with my hand underneath it, keeping it nice and steady, and then I just push with my thumb right here. It's not really a big difference in terms of shooting with it though. I always just found the other method just as comfortable, but for some reason that is different on this model. And you also do have a shutter release lock as well. This just kind of swings out when you're ready to shoot, and if you're going to put the camera in your bag or you don't want to accidentally shoot the camera, you just push that in and that locks it up. You've got a self-timer built into the camera. You have a sync port if you want to shoot with a flash, which is great for these kind of cameras. Having the shutter inside the lens, a leaf shutter, you're able to sync your flash at any speed. So if you're interested in shooting with flash, that would also be a great option. And aside from that, it's pretty much the same kind of experience you would get with a Rolleiflex. There is also a version that has gray leatherette on the camera instead of black. This model just being all black, it kind of looks like any other Rolleiflex, but the gray model, it looks pretty rad. The overall size and form factor and weight of this camera is great. The f3.5 cameras are just a little bit smaller than the f2.8 versions. The f2.8 lens, it's going to be a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier. Overall just feels a little bit more like chunky when you're shooting with it, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but I've come to really appreciate just the size and weight and overall even just the look of the f3.5 lenses. There is an argument to the f2.8 versions and getting just that extra small amount of light, and it's really easy to be tempted to spend the extra money just to get, you know, the best of the best. That's where I was with the 2.8F years ago. I thought, if I'm going to buy a Rolleiflex, I want to get the best one I can get. And it's an amazing camera. Don't get me wrong, they all are. But I don't know that you're really going to see that much of a difference in regards to the price difference that you're going to pay. I don't know that you're really going to get a return on that just in terms of image quality or anything like that, because the f3.5, this lens itself, as well as other models, I've been more than happy with those, and especially saving some money while doing so. Even more affordable models like some of the Rolleicord models or even the Yashica TLRs that you can find for much less. They're all great. These cameras, the TLR system in general, it's just so much fun to shoot with. Again, I love shooting with a square and composing with that in mind, but just the overall experience of using a TLR, if you never have before, I would highly recommend at least trying it out once. But that's the Rolleiflex T. Overall, I've had a lot of fun with the camera so far, and if you have any questions on the camera, leave those in the comments, as well as any information that maybe I missed or didn't share. Whether it's cameras, lenses, anything I share here, I feel like I'm always learning new stuff as well in the comments, so I thank you all for that. And lastly, I also want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. When I first created mattdayphoto.com 10 years ago, I did it with Squarespace. This was long before they ever decided to sponsor my channel, but I chose Squarespace because it was just a no-brainer. They had everything I needed in one place, and all these years later, they're still continuing to build and add new features to their service, all while keeping it extremely easy to use while you do it yourself. Drag and drop customization, tons of different templates to choose from, along with 24/7 award-winning customer service that are always there when you need them. You can share your work there, have a place where people can contact you or even schedule appointments. You can even set up your own online store. Since I launched mattdayphoto.com, I've sold my own zines, photo books, prints, and merch all through my own website. No need to use a third-party service, and they also have tons of different plugins from third parties to keep everything in one place. Keeping track of your inventory, shipping fulfillment, it's all a breeze with their built-in tools. It's never been easier to build your own website, and you can start a free trial by going to squarespace.com/mattday. Use the promo code MattDay at checkout for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I hope you're all having a good holiday season as we get close to wrapping up 2023. It's going by quick, so thank you all for being here for all of it. I'm looking forward to the new year. But that's it for today. So thanks for watching, guys. I love you. I'll see you next time.